usually in the past, I would just ask like 2 questions, how do you uplift others at this time? How are you staying uplifted? But I wanted to go more in depth with what you've done and some of the initiatives
Okay.
you've done. So hopefully that's all right with you.
Sure. Do
All
your
right.
thing. I'm here to follow leadership.
Oh my goodness. Well, one to know one.
Damn. Like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood.
Hello everyone, my name is Cairo and I'm Miss Broward County. I'm also the co-host of Uplifting News, and today I have the very amazing pleasure of being able to interview my very own Pastor Wayne Lomax of the Fountain of New Life Church. So I just have to say that it's been a huge blessing. I did not even recognize it until I saw the flyer that Pastor Wayne Lomax was going to be on the same committee as me for the Mayor's Public Safety Council that has just occurred and will be actually ending this month. And so I have to say that when I saw his name on there, when I was on the video calls and I saw that he was on there, I got so excited because I have to say that Pastor Lomax is a phenomenal leader and is also extremely inspiring. And so I'm excited to be able to hear about how he's uplifting others at this time, the initiatives that he's doing, as well as how he's engaging in self-care. Wayne Lomax is the senior pastor of the Fountain of New Life Church in Miami Gardens. The Fountain of New Life Church, or TFONL, was founded in 1996 as the Fountain of Pembroke Pines, and in 2009, Lomax and the congregation relocated to Miami Gardens at 4601 Northwest 167th Street. TFONL's mission is to provide opportunities for spiritual growth through worship, study, prayer, fellowship, and service. The church places its primary focus, explains Lomax, on providing a dynamic worship experience with the hope of changing lives through small group studies, daily prayer cell opportunities, attractive ministry to children and teens, and service to the community. Pastor Lomax, how are you doing today?
Well, Sister Cairo, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to be a part of Uplifting News. As a matter of fact, I'm doing great. If I was doing better, I probably would have a condominium on Mars. I'm wonderful.
I like that. I like this. I haven't heard that before. Are you feeling uplifted today, Pastor Lomax?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
I'm doing great. Thank you.
You know what I will say is that throughout our time on the council, one thing that I have really recognized about you is that you really are a leader, and you have like this quiet but strong presence, and it empowers and uplifts so many people within the community. So I wanted to ask, from you, how are you uplifting others at this time, other than your presence? What are you doing?
Well, that's a great question. I have responsibilities of leading the church, and so, that means that there are a certain amount of people who are looking to me for direction and guidance and inspiration. And so it's really a part of what I am accountable and responsible for. And so there's several ways in which I do it as a pastor. And one is, through teaching and preaching, and hopefully the messages that I'm providing are helpful. So I've tried to make the messages contextual and relevant to what we're actually dealing with as a community. Not just a local community, but a universal community. It's the first time in my lifetime that the entire planet is affected by the same thing. And so there's no place on the planet that we do not have concerns, number one, with the pandemic, number two, with issues of the economies around the world, and then with stability in communities, such as there have been a lot of social justice issues that have certainly surfaced in the midst of the pandemic. So try to have relevant messages that are helping people navigate through these times. And so that's what I do as a pastor, and try to make sure that the people who are under my leadership stay in touch with each other and can serve in the context of their church in a virtual way, and that they know that we care and love them. And so we've done feeding ministries. We've had a massive feeding effort since June, I guess, maybe late April, but it really became really organized in June, where we feeding people every week. And so we're exploring doing some other things because now that the pandemic is really kind of normalized. It's here. It's become standard operating procedure. So now we have to discover how to thrive in this environment. How do we still, climb the ladder and move forward and make progress? So I serve in different places in the community. So you mentioned we served together on the mayor's safety council.
Mm-hmm.
So my interest in that, it's really kind of a policy overview committee, looking at what the policies are and, giving comment on, whether the policies are sufficient to have a safe and appropriate police force.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that hopefully, I think I missed the last meeting, but hopefully we'll also look at what actually happens. Policies are one thing, but what's most important is what actually happens, and that's where I'm most interested.
I think that that's so true, and you've touched on several points. Like, what I love about you, what I think makes you so different as a pastor and as a servant leader, faith leader, is that your sermons are always, there's so much, like, I want to say there's so many different flavors in terms of like the mixed media that you often use. You're so funny, and you always make a way to just include that humor in. And you're so right, it makes it really relevant in terms of some of the topics that are being discussed. I also wanted to share that, it's so true that at this point, because, it's the new normal that we have to get acclimated to, we're no longer thinking about how we're going to just survive during this time, but how we're going to thrive.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're saying. So it's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're doing so much in terms of the weekly, food donations that you're doing, providing to the community. And so I know that as much as that may be fulfilling, sometimes it can be a little taxing, in terms of being able to just have your hands in so many different places, being able to just be able to serve as many people as possible. So I wanted to know from you, how are you uplifting yourself or staying uplifted at this time?
Yeah, so now, there are a couple of different ways to answer that question. So there's the appropriate professional answer where you say that, I'm having my daily devotion every morning, and I read the Bible for 15 minutes, and I have a wonderful circle of friends who support me that I can lean on. And so that's one way of answering it. And I have all of that. But really the truth, I've found that this period is the most taxing and exhausting period of life that I've ever had. I've never lived in a time where I've actually felt what I would call the lingering effects of fatigue, because it is so much. And I think one of the reasons why there's a lot to do is because we really don't know how to do it. It's new to us. We're not familiar with how to really function fully and effectively in this kind of environment, but we're learning. So it's been a flurry of activity, and there are lots of people who want to reach out to you for lots of different things, to form coalitions and partnerships and to explore this. And so I think what I'm learning to do is to step back from it a little bit. And I think some of the things that I used to do before the pandemic became a reality, I'm going to have to go back to some of those things, but do it in a safe way. So I would take breaks and I would travel, but I haven't done any of that since the pandemic. I've been really kind of stuck in place. Mm-hmm. And so those things I'm starting to read more of different things. So, I picked up a book last night that I've read before, and I'm going to read it again because it was a good book and it'd be a good refresher. So some of those types of things, and then reading different types of material rather than just sticking to what I do professionally and reading spiritual books or books on social justice. I, read novels and fiction and short stories and stuff like that, poetry.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I also appreciate your honesty and your candor, because it's so true. I mean, I know that I started to experience it a couple months in myself, and it was difficult because I couldn't really put a word for it. There was no word that I was able to put to it because I was like, I know that I'm fine, but I realized sometimes you just feel really isolated or closed in, in terms
Yeah.
of not being able to go out the same way that you used to, and it does affect you. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. And I've also been reading quite a bit. I feel as though I have like 3 books I'm, currently reading from, like each book. But for you, which book are you currently reading at this time? Which book are you reading starting last night?
Yeah, I'm reading a couple of books right now. So actually 3 I can put my finger on. So I'm reading a book called Preaching as Celebration. And so I'm taking a course on preaching right now. So after 40 years of preaching, I finally decided to learn how to do it.
I
stop,
would say you
stop
did
faking it.
well.
Yeah, so I'm taking a class. And so I'm reading that book.
Mhm.
And I'm reading a book by Dr. Eddie Glau on James Baldwin. And so it is a wonderful book on the life of James Baldwin. And then I just picked up last night. I went into my library last night and I looked at a book on the shelf, and it was James Cone's Black Power and Black Theology. And so Cone's work is so significant in understanding the historical theological perspectives of the Black church. And so I picked it up and I just kind of thumbed through it this morning, and I said, yeah, I got to read this again because some of the things he's saying are just so helpful. Yeah. So that's my little short list library. How about you?
With me, okay, so there's several books I'm reading right now. The book that I have gotten the furthest in at this time is Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I
And
have it.
it's a good book. It's on the thick side though.
That's a big book though.
Yeah. I want to say it's like almost 600 pages, like 570 something, and I'm like 400 pages in. So I'm like, all right, that's a considerable amount.
This is what you should do. You should write Mr. Robbins and say, write a book called Awakening the Dwarf Within. And so the book won't be so big.
So big, right? I feel like maybe that book will be like
Awaken
the
yeah. And so what else are you reading?
Let's see. Well, another book that I'm reading is also The Master Key by Charles F. Hansel. So it was the original, like The Secret before The Secret became The Secret. And so it's all about mindset. A lot of the books that I find myself reading just for fun have been just becoming really aware of your mindset and then finding ways in which you can transform it, modify it. And I know that for me, it took a lot of preparing for Miss Broward because I'd never done anything like that before. So in order to even see yourself succeeding or excelling, you have to at least see that that's going to be a possibility. There's potential there. So that's what I was, doing, preparing up for Miss Broward County. And then when I got it, I'm preparing for now for Miss Florida. So I would say that a lot of what I've been reading has just been, also focusing on meditation. There's a book that I'm reading on meditation, and to me, I found that has really been my place of solace during this time. I've meditated even more during this time than I did before. And how I see it, because I know like growing up, I believe that there was a misconception that a older, kind a person of the church had told me, which is that meditating and yoga was like of the devil. I remember hearing that. And
I've heard
so
that before.
you've heard it before, right?
I've heard it before.
Yeah. And so what I realized was that through my own, seeking knowledge and whatnot, I find meditation as a way in which I'm talking to God. And then I listen to God, and I listen to him at that same time. So for me, meditation has really been helping me because like I said, and like you've been doing, we're so busy. We're so focused in different places in the community, at home. We have so much that we're doing. We have to give ourselves that time, to even meditate, to reflect, to be introspective. It's so important. Pastor Lomax, I remember that you cycled. Have you been cycling?
I have been.
That's good. That's good. Oh my, I mean, you are so good. I remember my dad was talking about that. He said that you're really good. So.
Well, it's just a form of exercise, but it helps me. It helps me because I ride 4:30 in the morning. And so it's a time to, it's meditating with your eyes open, you know. So, but I'm out there by myself, and so I get a chance to really think in a deeper space than I normally do once my day gets started.
I know exactly what you mean. That's why I wake up. I wake up at like 5:30 every morning for that exact reason. I go for runs. So you do the cycling, I do the running, but it's for the exact same reason. Like
Yeah.
it really does help to just be in that space by yourself. You're able to stay focused, and it just, I don't know, I think of it as the primer for your day, you know, like you
Yeah.
just set your day the right way. So I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so you
Mhm.
had already spoken about this before, but I'd love for you to expound upon, you know, what are some of the challenges that you've faced at this time, and how are you overcoming it? Like if you haven't already overcome them, how are you currently overcoming them?
I think, you know, it's in different areas. So,
Mhm.
of course, my professional life is different. So I've been in ministry since the 1970s. So
Mm.
I've been every Sunday, I've been used to going into a building someplace, and there are people there and people in the parking lot. And, you know, so now the parking lot is empty, the building is empty. And so it's repurposing everything. And there's a negative side to it, and there's a positive side to it. So the negative side is that you miss what you are familiar with. You know, you miss the people, you miss that whole routine. But the positive side of it is that it allows you to rethink what the church really is, and how the church is supposed to function, and what its role is, and how it discovers ways to maintain fidelity to its purpose
Mhm.
in the midst of a change, because the assignment and the purpose does not change, even though the circumstances have changed. And so it's allowing us to rediscover how the church can be effective. So I think professionally, that's probably the greatest challenge in that, because I have people that, I'm using the word repurpose. They've been used to doing things like parking cars and greeting people coming into the building, and doing hospitality type stuff and fellowship type stuff, and having different types of gatherings and meetings. But all that's pretty much impossible. Can't have prison ministry like you used to have, because you can't go to the prison. So how do you do prison ministry? You know, but there is a way to do it, but you can't do it the same way you used to do it. So you have to be committed to breaking out of these old models and methods. And, you know, been used to eating oranges and all you have is lemons. Okay, let's see what we can do with these lemons. Make something
Exactly.
up with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
You can flavor your food just a little bit differently. Make some lemonade.
hey, listen, yeah, yeah. Lemon pie, you know, lemon cake, you know, but you can get something positive out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Oh, I thought of one. Alkaline your water.
Yeah, hey, listen, that is great for the electrolytes and all that kind of stuff.
It really is. It
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that that is so true. I mean, that's something that I've definitely come into mind with. And I think that especially at this time, especially if you're going to have, instead of a survival mindset, a thriving mindset, that you have to think, okay, how am I going to adapt or be flexible during this time? Because
Yeah,
it calls for flexibility. There's no way
absolutely.
around it. I mean, we have to be innovative. So I understand that. And, you know, speaking of, you know, being flexible, speaking of what you had just shared with me, you know, what do you envision your legacy to be? You know, not just during this time, but just in general, keeping in
Hmm.
mind.
Now, you know, that's an interesting question. So I would say, you know, you prepped me. You sent me some of the questions that you might ask, and I saw that in there.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm honest, I've never really thought about legacy in a concrete way, but I've thought about it
Mhm.
abstractly. And so abstractly, I think about, of course, first professionally, you know, and maybe that's not the best place to start, but
Mhm.
you know, you do work. I mean, I work, you know, and so,
Mhm.
and I always have said about what I do professionally is that I want to leave, once I'm out of the space, that I want whoever steps into the space to be able to step into that space with an advantage. And so that I
Mhm.
don't leave a disadvantage. And so whenever they, you know, grab whatever is there once I'm finished, that they have a real advantage in terms of how they lead it forward. So
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I want want to do. And that means a lot of things, specifically, I'm speaking very generally,
Mhm.
but, you want whoever succeeds you to be able to do a lot better than what you did. So you want to leave the tools and resources and a foundation upon which they have an opportunity to do that. So that's one aspect. I think the second thing that I would say is legacy that I'd want to do is that I'd want my kids and my grandkids to remember significant teachings that I attempt to communicate. And so, I want them to quote me 50 years after I'm dead.
I think that's a very fair thing to want as a legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
wow. I really love everything that you've said, Pastor Lomax. Even what you just said about attempting to teach, know that you teach successfully. I mean, it's well communicated, it's well understood, and like you said, it's very comprehensive, and you take
Thank
into account like what's going on around us always, which I really appreciate. So with that being said, my very last question for you is, how can residents of South Florida, so, I'm Miss Broward County, but it does not matter, I'm a resident of South Florida, how can
Yeah.
people like myself as well as community leaders support your initiatives that you're doing at this time?
Well, I think, what I would say is, one, check us out, check us out online, check us out on our website. And, I think one of the first, I would say it's, what would I describe it as? Well, I think one of the greatest things you can receive from anyone is feedback. You know, sometimes we want people to come in and do some work or give some money. But sometimes if you can just get some feedback, you can get an honest assessment, so South Florida and those persons that are in your circle, I would love to hear their feedback. Particularly, I'm interested in people who are totally disconnected from church environment or spiritual environment. I'd love to hear their feedback, so that would be really helpful. I think secondly, I'm looking to, my next venture is really the building of our non-for-profit. And so if there are persons who are interested in being a part of a non-for-profit that's committed to community building, because it's going to exist for the purpose of really building the community, and building the community is like household by household. And so the households are primary targets. And so it's starting with children in households and providing them with some stability in terms of the basic things that children tend to need, such as, school and support for their academics, and a place that is accepting and nurturing and supportive of them in their own particular space. And then, of course, expanding those services and efforts to their family members, to their parents and siblings. So, and there are certain things that we're going to do in that context, in addition to academic enrichment. There are classes and courses that we're going to teach on how to deal with conflict, how to relate to people who are in authority, how to craft your behavior through the establishment of goals, and having objectives for those goals. We want to also have a portion of that. We don't know how we do this in the pandemic, but it's only really one way to do it. Maybe two ways, but we still want to infuse the arts into what we do. And so song, dance, public speaking, drawing, sculpting, all of these artistic expressions are necessary, particularly in communities that have historically been challenged. So if there are individuals who want to be a part of this community building effort through our non-for-profit Youth Development Institute, they can reach out to me, and we'll find a way to help them to go to bed at night very fatigued And
I'm sure there are so many parents who will hear this and say, sign me up. Sign me up. I love that. And, for me, Pastor Lomax, that I have a true passion and commitment to youth leadership development, and a lot of the conversations that we've had before, even talking on some of the programs that I've created through my business, like I definitely want to speak to you more about that, because
we got to do it.
let's do it. Yeah. So there we have it.
So I'll say this about you and Sudan and Dakar. Each of you are, extremely gifted, and your foundation is very strong. And so, build on that, and allow it to penetrate as deeply as possible into those places where opportunities to develop as as the three of you have had are just not available. So, but you, three beautiful siblings, parents have done a great job.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to share that with them. And I have to say that it's so true. I've recognized that some of the resources that I've been given, or some of the places in which I've been able to navigate, I recognize that it's time to, give a hand up and showcase, what I have learned to other people who may not have had those opportunities when, or if maybe they did not have those opportunities when they were younger, or maybe they're a younger person now and they just need that guidance, so that they can also, go down the path that they want to go down, whether it's for their career, personal development. But as you know, I'm very, very passionate about that, and it inspires me every day. So we're definitely going to be talking about that. Well,
okay.
I have to say, Pastor Lomax, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on Uplifting News and just share what you have been doing, share your candor as well as your smile. And we just have to say that we definitely support you and we absolutely love you.
Well, thank you. Love you too. And I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a real blessing and a joy. And, it's really a double delight that you're part of our church, and we're glad to have you and your family as a part. And what you're doing here is going to go far, but when you become a staple in mass media on either one of the major outlets, CBS, NBC, CNN, make sure you trying to craft a way to get me up there for some kind of interview, okay?
Listen, I believe in a hand up. I got you.
There's only one question. There's one question that you have to move on to the other guests. I'll be okay.
I love that you said that. Don't worry. I do not forget, and we're going to be right there with you. So that's okay. Not a problem. All right, everyone. So it was a pleasure getting to interview Pastor Wayne Lomax, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.